Let's start off with what we're seeing from a deposit perspective on a global level. 99 million tons of rare earths, of what we know of. Robbie, am I right to say that figure? 36% of those deposits, of course, China has. And then we're looking at the US with around 13%. South Africa, of course, does have this resource, but it's not as extensive with what we see in the likes of China.
I think what's very important when you quote those figures is to keep in mind that rare earth metallurgy is extremely difficult and complex. And to have a chemical analysis that says I've got a deposit containing 1 million tons of rare earth oxides does not mean that it can be economically extracted and processed. Yeah. So I always take those figures with such a huge pinch of salt that I actually forget about it.
Peter, let's go back in time. In the 1940s, Anglo-American mined rare earths for some time.
Well, I don't know that much about it. They were mining monazite, and mostly for the thorium that was in it. And I think the very first nuclear reactor was a thorium reactor. And this was a very high-grade deposit. Anglo's was good at mining even back then. So they had quite strong production for about 10 years. But by the 60s, everyone had gone to uranium reactors. The world was dying for plutonium. And so thorium started taking a back seat. And even today, you can't really give thorium away. There's a lot more thorium. I think it's 4 times more prevalent than uranium. And theoretically, thorium will give you 8 times the energy in a thorium thermal reactor that uranium will. But so much money and effort's gone into uranium, they've just forgotten about thorium. So yes, we mined it. I think Anglo's closed the mine in the mid-60s.
63 years.
63. Sat there for about 22 years.
Yes.
And then Rareco first purchased it in 86, 87?
Yes, 87. It was actually, the reopening of the mine was studied by Metorex in about 1979. And then Anglo's had a relook at it in 1986. And they sold it in 87 to the current Rareco.
So it's got quite, I mean, South Africa has quite a big history of
yes.
Rare earths. Chris, you know, when you look at the past and you look at where we are right now, we know that Rareco does plan to start production in around 2013. I mean, looking at it as an investment, is this good news for South Africa?
Look, I think so. I mean, because you know we've only just touched on how important these minerals are, and I think over time they're going to become more and more important. So yes, obviously it's going to be. There are probably other deposits elsewhere in South Africa, and not just in the Steenkramskraal deposit there near Van Rensdorp, all over the country. And I think it's going to. I wouldn't say it's going to set off a frenzy of exploration, but I think there's going to be a lot more exploration taking place. And as you say, investing a lot of time, money, and resources into extracting a lot of these minerals.
Okay, let's look at the history of Rareco, Robbie, and it's been quite an extensive one. You listed in the mid-1990s, you delisted in 2006. I mean, what exactly happened, and where are you today as a company?
The company was actually formed in 1987 when the founders bought the Steenkramskraal mine. It was then listed in 94 to open the mine. By the time we were ready to start the project execution in 1996, the market prices have collapsed to a point where it wasn't economically feasible. We had a re-go at the project in 2002 because the prices started lifting up, and then just as we did everything, the prices came down again. The company was delisted in around about 2006, and with the rare earth prices going up again since about 2008, we have started having another look at it.
So essentially now it's economically viable to mine rare earths in South Africa. You've also teamed up with a Canadian company. Tell us about the synergies there. Of course, Great Western Minerals Group, and whether you plan to list in South Africa going forward.
I'll answer the easy question first.
Yeah.
We have signed an offtake agreement with Great Western. They operate a magnet alloy factory in the UK called Less Common Metals.
Yeah.
And the magnetic metals, neodymium and praseodymium from Steenkramskraal will go to that factory. They also operate a battery alloy factory in Michigan. And the lanthanum, which is the battery alloy, the battery element will go there. And the balance of the material will be sold into the market. Whether Rareco is going to be relisted in South Africa, there's definitely been talk about it. But no decision has been taken.
Peter, do you think Rareco can be profitable going forward with all the stuff that we've heard and the fact that most of the companies in China haven't been profitable for many years?
Yes, I really do. They've got so many minerals in there. If you look at just the gold, they're talking over 1 gram a ton. Yes. Gee, you see enormous gold mines all over the world going for 1 gram a ton. They got over 1% copper. And then Robbie tells me that they're going to, out of the 17 rare earth minerals, 3 of them are going to be totally refined right down to the actual metal itself. So there's a lot of value add there. This is the richest, rarest mineral deposit on the planet. It's small, but it is so rich. It's got so many minerals in it. It should be profitable.
We're running out of time. Chris, any last words before we say goodbye?
No, look, I think, and look, Peter just didn't mention thorium. I mean, that's something which I think over time, is going to become a lot more important as well. But yeah, I think we must leave the last word to Robbie here.
Yes, Robbie, firstly, what is the value of your asset? I know that we were talking about it off air and you weren't really sure of the numbers.
It's a lot of numbers. It depends on the value. Obviously, the view you take on the rare earth prices going forward. The rare earth prices have spiked dramatically. And whenever prices of commodities have spiked in the past, it always comes down. The question is just how far it comes down again. It will definitely not come down to the level where it was.
And what level are we looking at here?
I would say that you would probably end up with a contained rare earth oxide price for the Steenkamskraal, or value for the Steenkamskraal deposit of around about $30 per kilogram of contained rare earth oxide on average for the basket. Taking into consideration that the rare earth ore runs about 17% rare earth oxide, you can do the sums and calculate what the contained value per ton of.
I think we said $800 million this morning.
For the value of the of the deposit.
The question is, are these sustainable prices?
Exactly, that's of course a big question mark. Robbie, just very quickly, you said the importance of rare earths. If you could just reiterate to our viewers.
You cannot have this broadcast today without rare earths. You cannot manufacture the television camera, the lights that we're sitting under, none of this, that laptop computer, your cell phone, the broadcast, the fiber optic cables that carry the signal, none of it can be manufactured without rare earths.
And of course they're not really recyclable, and I think that's
there's
the very big issue.
Currently no substitute for them, and they cannot be recycled.
Gentlemen, thank you so very much for your time. Unfortunately,